How's it going, species? Welcome to a brand new Flash video. Today, we're talking about Season 7, Episode 8, titled The People vs. Killer Frost. Now, yeah, I have a few opinions about this episode, but first of all, before I get into the breakdown, I wanted to talk and kind of add in the recent news that we got, because I haven't made a separate video for it, and this really does weigh into my kind of future outlook on The Flash, especially with how I've been feeling about the show as of late, and it's very interesting. My last review I thought was going to be arguably really hated by a lot of people, but almost every comment on that video is highlighting what I'm saying, which I'm very relieved to know about, that the show just isn't really like what it was anymore, and the stories that we have going on are just I don't need to articulate myself so much there, because I've demonstrated what's going on with The Flash in a minute, and you guys seem to be echoing the same thoughts in the comments. Plus, I plan on maybe making a whole separate video about this, because I'm glad I'm not the only one. But now, to top this off, ladies and gentlemen, we are now having Tom Cavanagh and Carlos Valdez, arguably two of the most OG members on the Flash TV series as a whole, of whom Tom Cavanagh plays multiple Harrison Wells characters, and then of course Cisco Ramon, I was about to say as Carlos Valdez, but Carlos Valdez as Cisco Ramon. Now, I don't want to drag this out too much, but we have to face the reality of the situation. So let me say this first. I think we all knew this was coming at some point. These rumors have been around for multiple seasons now, especially in relation to Cisco. So it doesn't surprise me when we have one leaving, such as Tom Cavanagh, that Cisco, or should I say Carlos, is like, yeah, I think I'm going to dip as well. The show is at a point where I do really firmly believe this. People have been saying it to me. I've been saying it for a long time as well. I was kind of hoping I was wrong, but now we're 8 episodes in. It's a bit that The Flash is indeed past its sell-by date. It doesn't mean you can't still enjoy what you've got, just like the food analogy, but the best is indeed before the present, where we're at right now. And now, as I said, tuning my expectations to the future of the show with the way it's going now, could it get better? Absolutely it can. It really could. Like, how do I know any better? But what I have to go off is that a majority of us aren't enjoying the show that much anymore for a multitude of reasons. And now we're having Tom Cavanagh leave, and we're having Carlos Valdez leave, which is going to leave us with potentially, and most likely, Candice Patton as Iris, obviously, with her, Barry Allen, Grant Gustin, the main character. Obviously, the show is called The Flash. But we've got new Team Flash members such as Allegra, who I don't even know what really she does half the time. We've got Camilla, who I'm kind of hoping is going with Cisco, which I'm sure she is, which, to be honest, I don't want to sound bad, but like, nothing against the actress. But Camilla, I mean, come on! What the hell? What does she do? Either way, she's probably going with Cisco. So let's mark that out the way, right? Chester, I like Chester. So, but who's going to be with Barry? Chester and Allegra. Kind of like that setup episode that we had a couple of episodes back. And it was down to Barry, Allegra, and Chester to kind of sort things out. I think Cisco effed off somewhere. Caitlin was just doing something else. And I have to admit to you guys, the future doesn't look so bright. And I don't want to just say that out of such a pessimistic place. I'm just tuning my expectations to a very realistic outlook on the future. We are clearly not enjoying The Flash as much anymore. We all know why. There's a bunch of evidence as to why. Take the episodes of Season 7, Season 6, Season 5, Season 4. Of course, I'm not negating the good moments, but you get what I'm trying to say. I don't want to repeat myself much more, but I'm really going to miss Tom Cavanagh and Carlos on the show. I don't think the show, especially now that it's kind of on a downhill trajectory, unfortunately, even though anything has the chance to bounce back, I don't want to give merit there if it does somehow indeed perhaps pull that off, but I just don't see how it can now that we have Tom Cavanagh leaving and Carlos leaving. Plus, with the show already running out of ideas, and the ideas that they're trying to supplement us with are things like the Speed Force being wrapped in a little burrito blanket, and just things like that. Like, you know, don't forget, guys, you may be the lightning rod, but I'm the lightning. So that was a bit of a ramble, but let's get into the review for this episode and the breakdown. And I don't know if there's going to be so much like breakdown details as, oh, this was like a Easter egg to that. This is more of a consensus review again, just because I feel like, you know, we're touching base again. The Flash went on break for a while, and now we're back. I did not review the last episode so positively. And what do I think of episode 8? You know, the People versus Killer Frost. There was 1 or 2 cool moments in it, but other than that, guys, I have to tell you, I don't particularly care. I'm sorry, I still don't particularly care, especially with the way they kind of flesh things out in this episode in various facets. It's just, I get what they were going for, and fair enough. Kudos to you if you're a really big fan of Killer Frost and you're kind of sad to see what happened this episode. I can understand that, but to me, I don't know what it is. I don't think I've ever massively cared about Killer Frost. I think maybe in her conception in the show, if that makes sense, when things were really brand new, but the way things have padded out the past few years and now this storyline, I'm just saying that it's not exactly the most captivating storyline for me. So, you know, the way this started off, of course, is with that little tease of Kramer going to Argus at the beginning, which kind of turned out to be a little bit of a twist halfway through that trial. But ultimately, we had Team Flash at Star Labs talking about the fact that Killer Frost is facing, or should I say Frost now, 10 to 20 years in jail. I felt like some of the subtext of what was going on, you know, like, you know, with Killer Frost, there was just some lines that were so on the nose half the time. You know, it's like, if I don't own up to my choices, I'll never be able to move on. You know, just, there's a lot of like, you know, and I get it, but like, I don't know, there's a lot of transparent moments. This was running alongside the Forces storyline, which is just something, I think this is something I do want to premise to you guys, and I've done it quite a lot in my reviews recently. I completely respect if you're into this concept or these concepts of the storyline, or the storylines that are running parallel to each other. Like, we have a Killer Frost thing going on this episode, but parallel to that, of course, you have the Forces storyline. It's just, unfortunately to me, just like how some people like wearing camo and some people like wearing denim, I don't like what's going on with these concepts, let alone the way that they're going about it. But I don't care about Killer Frost with what's going on right now, and I most certainly don't care about the burrito blanket goddamn iteration of the Speed Force with what they're doing by humanizing her. And I get some points to what people are saying in defense of this with, you know, oh, maybe it's interesting adding some humanizing aspects to the Speed Force, but I'm sorry, it's something I would never, if I was a creator or a writer on The Flash, I would never think to embody the Speed Force in the way it's been done on this show right now. So when I'm watching a storyline this episode, I am still interested in aspects of it, especially, obviously, how shady the Speed Force has been acting. We've all been expecting a low-key betrayal. That happens this episode, but it also happened in a very corny way. But to give some credit to it, as I said, I really like this show in general. That's why I keep watching it. I want it to work. So, like, I don't want you to think when you're watching this that I am a guy just talking shit for shit's sake. I'm really not. There are some cool aspects to it, but they're not, you know, it's like throwing things at a wall and seeing what sticks. Of course, if you throw enough things at the wall with the Speed Force storyline, I'm gonna like a couple of parts of it. For example, the promo for the next episode, Grant looks to be working his acting chops off, things are getting dramatic, the Speed Force with what she did at the end of this episode, and what this could mean for the Flash in the next episode, it seems dramatic, and I kind of like that kind of stuff. But other than that, if I zoom out on it, it's like, oh, okay, so I don't want to exactly call it that I'm split on this storyline. I don't exactly find it the most compelling thing overall, but you know, there's parts I love about it, like the actress behind Nora's mother, or should I say the Speed Force. I think she kills it. Grant Gustin, I love him as the Flash. It's just the ideas aren't really meshing with what I wanted to see this season. But nevertheless, I was still kind of interested to see where things went this episode, especially with how adamant the Speed Force is with finding Fuerza, because we had the forces that were detected. She's so adamant about getting the Strength Force, especially with both of them combined, she'll be no match. When they talk about how, you know, the Still Force wasn't exactly a vicious energy feeder, essentially we have quite the triggered Speed Force Nora. Whenever it comes to another force, she wants to go straight away. Like, kill first, ask questions later, where Barry and Team Flash are kind of thinking, but what if they're not all out to get you? So what is the real game here? We still quite don't yet know. It seems to be like a proper survival instinct mode Speed Force, but a lot of you guys I know are thinking, well, who is really behind this? Is it like Eobard Thawne trying to make Barry do something bad? Or I don't think they would do that. It's too much of like a mirror storyline from season 1, Wells pretending to be someone else behind someone else. That would just be a bit like that. But nevertheless, yeah, don't get me wrong, I am on board with some ideas. That's why I want to keep underlining that for people. It's just, I'm not on board with all of them. Like, most certainly not the Speed Force wrapping itself into a freaking blanket. Things progress progress along this storyline in the episode with them actually finding Alexa, who is Fuerza. Speed Force Nora is very like, oh my god, it's you, isn't it? It's you. And initially she's in denial. The Speed Force makes things even more shadier with just proposing to grab her. Iris is just like, we don't just grab people and test them against their will. Speed Force Nora, of course, is still adamant because lives are at stake, but Iris is pointing out how if Barry does that, he'll be giving up a part of himself that makes him a hero. So yeah, like, arguably, the Speed Force is kind of asking the Flash to throw away the very principles that make him up as a hero. And we'll touch more on about this in a little bit, but we need to talk about the courtroom storyline. So we had Cecile defending Killer Frost in court. She's down to serve some time, but the interesting thing about this case is that the prosecution wants her to have her powers erased, which is highly irregular according to Cecile, which is true, but it's an alternate punish to serving the prison time, and that is indeed to take the metahuman cure. But they argue that since felons are indeed prohibited from, having firearms after serving time or whatever, Frost's powers are technically her weapons, so the state argues that they can take them away as well for using the cure, which I have to admit, I guess it's an interesting argument, but still, I find myself just watching this season, and I think, okay, this balance with the other stuff going on, I hate to be that guy, but you compare it to season 1 and season 2 storyline and just think this is no way near as like the cool crap that we had back in the day. I don't really have much more to argue amongst that, other than I feel like the show can do more interesting stories, but that's why I recognize that people such as yourself watching this right now may be really into this. It's just, unfortunately, I'm not right now. I have to admit, though, there are a few scenes that really rub me up the wrong way with this, and I don't want to be that nitpicky guy, but for example, when Caitlin and Allegra go into the CCPD and they're just going to places that should be riddled with cops, and they're done with the most ridiculous excuses, like knocking over the cops like coffee, and look, by the time she looks up, Caitlin's gone. Or as a distraction. It's just things like that. I just think cops would be crawling all over this place. Plus, it's almost insulting to the viewer how transparently stupid this is as an excuse to get away. Just things like that. I just feel like that's what the Flash has adopted a lot these days. Whereas it had much cooler storylines in its infancy, it also had, and I can't say this for everything, of course they had some lame CW or whatever kind of, TV logic moment. But I feel like they just kind of decorate themselves with silly, goofy moments like this now. And I feel like they're fully aware of it as well, but they actually just embrace the goofiness of some of these excuses that allow them to do things that are really, really contrived and important to the plot. And that's kind of what makes it more aggravating to me, is these moments that are potentially integral to, contributing to a main plot point are just like solved through knocking over a freaking coffee cup, where it's just like, you're in the freaking Central City police station. Oh yeah, and don't get me started on when Cisco said there was 20 seconds left, and then a lot more than 20 seconds went by. We had Allegra talking to Kramer, we had a few other things going on, and then when it cut to Caitlin again, there was still 10 seconds left to set the oximeter to neutralize the cure. Because of course there was. Look, I wouldn't be on that all the time unless just things like this happen frequently, and unfortunately they do. And I don't know, at what point can things like this always just conveniently happen before you just feel like, oh, this TV show is just always having moments like this, and is that really quality? I also wasn't a massive fan of how the courtroom stuff kind of ended as well, because we had the judge who was ready to deliver the verdict, but then the prosecution obviously pulled something out the bag with how they wanted to say that Killer Frost had rendered the cure inert, or it was ineffective, right, because of what happened at the CCPD. Yet this could have been really easily solved, because as Killer Frost said herself, she's been there the whole time. I'm pretty sure, like, it's just, this all ended with the judge now having to go away and walking back on the fact that she was just about to give a verdict and go back to her chambers to think upon another verdict. But it's like, you shouldn't have to think about this verdict anymore. This shouldn't change anything, because it clearly wasn't Killer Frost, because I'm pretty sure some courtroom or some police officer would have kept an eye on her, and there would have been evidence to prove that it wasn't her who broke into the CCPD. Now, I know Caitlin did admit to it, but regardless, none of this should really change the judge's opinion, because whatever the judge was going to decide, whatever just happened then shouldn't have affected the verdict that she was just about to give. What ended up happening is she went away, came back, and yeah, she gave Killer Frost something that she requested as well, life in prison, without the possibility of parole. At this point, I'm just thinking, look, I know you want to serve time, you want to do the right thing, and yes, I get what you're trying to convey through the screen here. Okay, it's like, okay, alright, you know what, Killer Frost, go serve your life in prison without the possibility of parole. I'm okay with that. See you later. I suppose that is that for her character. I'm guessing we might speak to her every now and again. I can imagine future episodes where they almost like, there could be a whole, this is how predictable the CW can be. There might be a future episode where they have to get the government or some kind of like judge to sanction Killer Frost leaving her cell because there's an episode where only her Frost powers can, like, I don't know, execute whatever they need to do in that episode. That is gonna happen. I could be wrong, but if Killer Frost is in jail without the possibility of parole, that's how we're going to see her from now on. One thing that was kind of interesting was that Daniel Panabaker moment. I've never seen Daniel Panabaker kind of express acting chops like that before. To be fully transparent, I have got nothing against Daniel Panabaker. I've always thought she was kind of decent. I've always felt, though, that her characters, or should I say Caitlyn, has never really expressed much of an emotional spectrum. It's always been kind of, and I hate to say it, but like one tone for Daniel Panabaker's Caitlyn Snow. Obviously with Killer Frost, she's had a bit of an opportunity to add a bit of attitude into the way she plays a role on The Flash. But even then, I was never really truly impressed. But there was that scene with Killer Frost, which I didn't like some moments of it, but when she like outbursts like that, should I say, with quite a bit of emotion, you can tell that she really tried. Like, and Daniel Panabaker really wanted to kill that moment. And I just wanted to give credit where credit's due, because I couldn't, it's so funny. As much as I'm not enjoying these episodes, that moment made me kind of tear up. And I just felt like, what's going on with me? Like, Boba, are you into this? It's kind of a mind-effing thing. It's like, I'm not really into this episode, but that kind of performance kind of made me into it for that moment. And of course, we did get some motivation behind Kramer, and that's that story she had with a metahuman who she thought was an ally, and through trusting. Like, there was a bit of backstory to her, but I don't know. I'd love to know your guys' comments on this, but I just didn't really care about the character of Kramer. Like, so, yeah, this whole time she was trying to convict Killer Frost. I just found it as annoying as the Arrow, was it Arrow season 6 or 7 storyline where we had that FBI agent just trying to, you know, lock up the vigilantes whilst they were trying to do vigilante things. It was reminiscent of that, and I remember that being a very rough and kind of coarse, boring time in Arrow. Luckily, this wasn't nearly as long, of course, but it was reminiscent. I was just like, do we have to go for, can we not just cut and get to the cool Godspeed stuff now? That's kind of what I'm feeling like. Back to Frezov stuff, they go back to Alexa. She kind of knows that it has been her this whole time. So, like, she finally admits it, that she's been having blackouts. She's kind of scared that she could indeed be the monster terrorizing Central City, especially after the abracadabra thing. She was so angry, tapped that into the strength force, and lo and behold, take a bag, and it is indeed her. When they were testing Alexa, she started hulking out, and this is when Speed Force Nora blasts the crap out of Alexa. So this is where stuff got interesting. She says, if I don't end her now, she will sacrifice me to get what she wants, my life. You should be helping me. I need your powers to defeat her, and you promised, and now you're breaking that promise, and I know why. And she looks at Iris, is like, you may be as lightning rod, but I'm the lightning. So I don't know how much shady stuff is going on here. Like, I like all the theories that I'm hearing from people. They are interesting, but this does sound like a character. Speed Force is just so adamant about surviving that she's kind of coming out as a bit of a monster. I don't know if there really is some like secret earbud or whatever theories are out there to like hide behind a facade of the Speed Force. I don't know what the explanation will be, or if it's the other forces that aren't a part of her is thus making her like unhinged or something. But regardless, yeah, she's getting a bit, well, she is getting a bit evil, but like out of desperation, almost out of survival instinct. And yeah, I found that line very cringy. I shouldn't have to say that. It's very self-explanatory. It's hilarious to me that they've got the Speed Force not only hugging itself in a blanket, but now sending actual lightning bolts that are intended to kill at Iris. And that's just crazy. And then in this moment, Barry jumps in front of Iris and kind of gave her exactly what she wanted. So when he sent out his lightning and Speed Force energy, it infused in this kind of little Speed Force sticky grenade. And she says, thank you, tosses it at Alexa. Iris goes and checks her, and it looks like she has no pulse, so she's dead. So like, it does seem at least that this woman who held people, held low-income housing, she's got letters from kids on the wall, has been murdered by the embodiment of the Speed Force. And then at the end, it was quite a cool. It was almost like a Speed Force voice modulator. I'll give you that, Flash. But we had the Speed Force Nora saying, it's time to choose a side. Very. It was, you know, one thing I'll say, cool effects. I like things when they get speedstery, but yet again, I'm just not subscribed to what they're giving us here, truly. What I will say is the promo for next episode does look kind of interesting, though, as maybe that's just me being biased to, like, moments like this when they're in previews. I'm a sucker for when Grant Gustin gets dramatic. I love episodes like Enter Flash Time, even though there's a lot of writing problems with stuff like that in terms of power consistency and levels. I just love it when things get dramatic, and things look very dramatic in the next episode, because Barry's just obviously like, what is wrong with you? And things like that. It's like going back and forth. So I don't want to say I'm excited, because I'm smart, and then I'm not going to get excited for something that I know isn't something I'm on board with anyway, just because it looks dramatic. But, you know, regardless, we'll have to wait and see where this goes. I don't really have too much else to add other than, in this episode, it was kind of very mediocre. I'm not really mega interested in the Killer Frost storyline. I get what they were doing. Actions have consequences. There was going to be a legal precedent that set her up for, and all metahumans, for a metahuman cure, but she managed to avoid that, which set the precedent of not having metahuman cures for metahumans who may be criminals. And we had, forget his freaking name, eyeball snake guy saying, you know, every metahuman's got to remember what you did for them. Like, it's just, you know, there's this almost low-key social political commentary there going on. It's just, on top of I don't know, you've heard my thoughts here. It's okay. I don't care. And then we have this Speed Force stuff. I think I'm just waiting to see if Season 7 can pull it back with some Godspeed stuff. I really damn flipping hope so. And it's just overall, though, you wind this back to the beginning of this video. Now we have Carlos and Tom Cavanaugh leaving. I will obviously watch The Flash Season 8, Episode 1. I'm not going to. Like, obviously I am. And I know a lot of you are in the same boats from the comments that I've been reading, but I do think that Season 8 will be the season that I pull the plug. But obviously I'll review the first couple of episodes, but like, if you've watched some of my Batwoman videos, I might see it and test the waters out a little bit, but I've been putting up with the, you know, lapsing quality in The Flash for quite a long time now. A lot of us have. I know I don't want to come across as pretentious or anything, or like, oh, like, I could do better. I'm not saying that. I'm just calling it how I see it. And I know a lot of you respect my honesty there, and I thank you for, you know, just commenting nice things and not saying, oh, Boba, you're just a hater, because I feel like I try and articulate myself fairly to this show, and it is dropping. It just is. I would love to know your thoughts, of course, down in the comments below. Like this video if you did enjoy it. It really does help me out, especially with just sharing it out in the recommended. It's a massive help. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, of course. And as always, check out my top pinned comment in the comment section down below, because that is links to my Twitter and other pages where you can follow and support me. But thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you speedsters in the next video. Goodbye.